Hi Hires, we're looking at DNA in the genome and we're looking at how we can map relatedness using phylogenetics and molecular clocks. Starting with the first big word, phylogenetics. Okay, so philo is to do with family basically, this is to do with taxonomy, so this is relatedness, and genetics is obviously your DNA. So what you're trying to do is to work out how related you are by looking at how similar you are in your genetics. And by doing that, you can actually work out how closely related an organism is to another one. So this would be an evolutionary distance. And then on top of that, you can look to see when things changed to work out how far back that link was. When did you split off in a particular lineage? So we have one big split, the big split, which we have to start with. If we take every single living thing that we have, they form three domains of life. The three domains of life are the archaea, which are archaea as in archaeology, so ancient forms. We have the eukarya, which are your eukaryotes, which you know, and the bacteria, which are your other prokaryotes. Both the bacteria and the archaea are pro. So from this, we have, if we track back, a common ancestor, the universal common ancestor, the ancestral cell, the one that every single thing came from. If we go far enough back, we are all related, but you've got to go quite a long way back. Okay. If we zoom in a bit, we can actually find common ancestors, not the universal ones, but just when was our last common ancestor with anything. So for the chimp and the human on this one, our most recent common ancestor is obviously the red bit here, but if I want to find the most recent common ancestor with the human and the chicken, I have to go back to this branch point where we both connect. And you have to be able to work with these types of diagrams. Some big milestones that we have. So starting from the last common universal ancestor, you've got the prokaryote-eukaryote split, so our developing of a nucleus, development of photosynthesis, huge. And you've got your multicellular organisms, your animals, your vertebrates, your land plants. But that's all something that we can tell from the phylogenetics in terms of how related you are. But working out how long ago that split happened is a little bit trickier. So we can start with, can we find it? If we can actually find the splits, then we can just map that. And that's the fossil record. And all we mean by the fossil record is all the fossils that we found. Okay, that makes the fossil record. And it tells you just by dating exactly when that fossil was formed that that particular thing was there. And that helps if you've got the sequence information, then you can figure out what was there at the same time. Our next level is to look at things called molecular clocks. Now these are really quite a neat way of doing things, although involve quite a lot of work. So what we know is that mutations are rare and spontaneous. Okay, that's what we know about mutations. We've talked about them already. But what we also know is that there is a rate. So although we're saying rare, you can actually say, okay, that mutation happens every 1 in 1,000 years. So if you know that a mutation happens once every 1,000 years, it doesn't matter when in that 1,000 years it happens. It just means if you've had a 1 mutation, you're like, well, that last time was 1,000 years ago when it was the same. So you can change this as a way to look at it. Okay, they accumulate over a steady rate because we know if it's 1 per 1,000 years, if I've now got 4 mutations, I'm like, well, that's 4,000 years ago that we were right back at the beginning. And so we can use the sequence data to compare how many mutations you have and then how many have accumulated, and therefore work out how long it's been since they split. Okay, so here we've got a comparison of the human alpha globin gene. Now, human alpha globin gene you would expect to be quite highly conserved because this is part of your oxygen carrying. So any changes that you have in this are going to take quite a while to accumulate. So it's quite a good molecular clock because you can use this to work out quite a lot of information. The time in these ones is almost always given as MYA, millions of years ago. So you need to know that that's a common one that they're going to use. Okay, so what we've got up the side is the number of substitutions. So we're starting at no substitutions and then we've got 20, 40, 60, 80 compared to the human gene. So when we look at this, the cow has the least different ones from us. So therefore we're saying that's most related to us. And then we've got the platypus, chicken, carp, and finally the shark. Okay, and by looking at this, we can look how long ago was that a common ancestor. So we're saying that as far as cows and humans are concerned, our common ancestor was, in this scale, about 90 million years ago. However, the shark, we take it down, was about 460 million years ago. This is another way you're commonly shown it, and this is the type of diagram you're most likely to be given and the scale that you're going to have to work with to go back to a common ancestor. The scale will be shown at the side here, and it will be working back the way, and it will be done in, again, millions of years ago. So to show a couple of real questions. So this is the 2015 past paper. Question from this, we have the graph below shows a molecular clock which compares the amino acid sequences in the protein cytochrome C in various vertebrate groups. Cytochrome C is to do with part of your respiration system, so again one that's pretty highly conserved. You're not expecting it to change quickly, which is why it's really good as a clock in terms of how long we're looking at, because we're looking at a very long time ago, times 10 to the 6 years ago, so millions of years ago. So from the information in the graph, you'll notice this is a multiple choice question. Which vertebrate group shared a common ancestor most recently? So all we're looking for is, if this is a difference going up the side, so up the top here we've got the highest difference, and at the bottom here we've got no difference. So which ones have the least differences? You're like, well, P has the least differences. That's the birds and reptiles. So the correct answer there was D. Okay, if we look again, Q, reptiles and mammals are further up here, so longer ago, and R, even longer ago. Okay. Okay, another past paper question, this one from the 2017. There's a short answer question this time. The phylogenetic tree illustrates the evolutionary relatedness of 6 groups of animals, and we've got our millions of years going down the way here. Okay, being really careful that you're reading it in the right order or the right way back. So if you were reading to here, you'll have quite a lot of people. Now this should be 120 because you're reading back down here from 100 to 200. But you will have people who will write down 280 because they start reading up the way. So be really, really careful when you're looking at those scales. Okay. Using information from the phylogenetic tree, state when the last common ancestor of salmons and frogs lived. Now remember, this is your paper in the exam, so there's nothing to stop you actually doing exactly what I'm doing here. Salmon, let's track the salmon back. There is the salmon's evolutionary path. Okay, let's now put in the frog. Okay, the frog, here's the frog's evolutionary path. So where did they match? Where did they meet up? That's where it was, so that's the ancestor you're looking for. And at least they've been reasonably nice here. It's 550, so we've not got that chance, so someone might have gone 650, so be careful there. Calculate how many million years separate the divergence of eagles and humans from the divergence of rats and mice. So let's look again here. So eagles and humans, there was the point at which eagles and humans split, okay? And here is the point at which rats and mice split. So you're being asked just to read this off and do the difference. So if we read this across, okay, the rats and mice were at 50 million years ago. And the humans and eagles, pulling it across here, we're at 310 million years ago. So take one away from the other and we have 260 million years ago. Okay. Rats are more closely related to humans than they are frogs. Use evidence from the tree to justify this statement. This is important. It says use evidence. So you're not going to get away with just saying, well, they branched at a different time. You're going to have to give data. And the data that you're looking to put in there is to say that rats and humans had a common ancestor, and you read this across, sorry, just trying to get this on the point that I should be looking at. Is that here? 90 million years ago. However, your frogs and rats, if we go further back, are here. So that's 420. So you need to actually put that data in. So rats and frogs 420 million years ago, rats and humans only 90 million years ago. And that's us for this.